You've got big projects to tackle, but your day gets swallowed up by repetitive tasks and constant inquiries. It's hard to make progress when you're stuck putting out fires. That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. Acting like an extra set of hands, you get your time back for the high-impact projects. Ready to reclaim your time? Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Hi, I'm a higher ed social media manager, and I have a confession. I think influencer marketing is a huge opportunity for higher education, but many schools aren't leveraging it yet. I'm excited to dig into this topic with creator economy expert Lia Haberman. Welcome to Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager, a podcast that addresses the do's, don'ts, and dynamics of the digital ecosystem specific to higher education. I'm your host, Jenny Lee Fowler. Join me every other week for discussions with some of the best minds in higher education social media management and marketing. Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Lia Haberman, welcome to the podcast. It is my absolute pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm happy to be here.
I was just looking at your Instagram account. Were you just at the White House?
I was. Yes, I literally just flew home. I was at the White House for a holiday party that they had for creators, celebrities, newscasters, kind of public figures, and people in the creator economy.
I mean, can you just give us a little taste of what that was like?
It was as amazing as you imagine it is, and awe-inspiring. There's 4 security checkpoints to go to get into the White House, and then they've got kind of this section of the White House of the West Wing that's kind of portioned off, beautifully decorated, gorgeous food. So people who went last year told me go for the food, like it's just the food is that good because it's the White House chefs that are making it. It's not like a catering company. And then Biden and Joe and Jill Biden came out. He gave a toast, and then Jill Biden walked around and kind of chatted with everybody. And then what I found out afterwards, it was a whirlwind. It went very quickly. I was talking to one of the staffers on the digital strategy team. They do the parties every 2 hours. So what they do is there are so many, ambassadors, diplomats, politicians, different groups that they have to have in. They have a group in for a 2-hour party. They, gracefully kind of shoo you out, break it down, clean up for 2 hours, and then have the next party. And so we were the 3:30 to 5:30 party. We got, escorted out. And they cleaned up and had another party that night. And I was like, wow, that is efficiency. Whoever runs the catering events at the White House is like, hire those people to do everything.
Yeah, are running a masterclass. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so amazing. And you received an invitation because you are a creator economy expert. Can you tell us how one becomes a creator economy expert?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm largely a self-anointed creator economy expert. I didn't study this in school. I mean, listen, when I went to school, it wasn't even a career option.
Oh, totally. Yeah, same.
It was a while back. But essentially, I was hiring creators or creators and influencers for campaigns. Based on that, UCLA Extension asked me to teach a course on influencer marketing based on my professional expertise. I started teaching in one of the very first courses. I just sort of decided, I'm not even sure that it was a conscious thought. I thought, I'm basically going to make this my whole personality because I love this topic. I love that it was mostly all at the time, especially like 2016, 2017, was a lot of women. They were all very entrepreneurial, and I just felt really passionate about supporting them. And so I just decided, like I said, like I essentially made this my entire personality. I then worked for an influencer, running her marketing for her company. So I think just kind of by virtue of hiring them, working for them, teaching about influencer marketing, and now becoming somewhat of a creator myself,
Mhm.
I think that's led to, at least for me, that's kind of the path of why I'm now considered an expert in the creator economy. But I mean, I think now you can also study this. There's so many more options now. Like now
Mhm.
you can actually go to school and get a degree that kind of helps you become a creator economy expert. You see creators who have just risen through the ranks and are really good at translating kind of the needs
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
creators into advice for other people. You see
Mhm.
influencer marketing experts, hiring managers, marketing managers becoming experts. So I do think that there's a lot of avenues now to get there. It's just, what, like 8 years ago, it was just a little bit more nebulous. Like, how
Mhm.
do you do this? How do you get into this? There's a lot of ways in.
Not everyone who manages social media for higher ed comes from like a marketing background. A lot of us are traditional communicators. So, could you tell us what influencer marketing is?
Influencer marketing is when a brand hires an influencer to promote its products or services to their audience. And I do want to just mention that that is different than the creator economy. So those two terms get used a lot interchangeably. I know I'm
Mm.
guilty of it as well. But influencer marketing is really, promoting a brand's products and services. The creator economy is kind of the bigger, broader umbrella term for the businesses, the startups, the platforms, the tools, and the technology that allow influencer marketing to happen, that allow creators to monetize their audiences. And so it's kind of the broader umbrella, and influencer marketing fits into the creator economy.
For right now, influencer marketing is, I've heard some people say that it's losing momentum, and others say that, this is going to be the year for influencers. So where do you stand with all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people love to say that because it's good for clicks, right? The drama. Influencer marketing is
I
over.
I
Uh,
agree.
yeah, and so it makes for a good social post. It makes for a good headline. I think what we're seeing is it's not over, it's an evolution. So the
Mm.
first era of influencer marketing really was sponsored content. It was the idea that an influencer was going to post something on their feed promoting your product or service. As we evolve, as the industry evolves, I think it's becoming more of an integrated experience where you're seeing there are in-house influencers that work for the company. Influencers are brought on as consultants. Influencers are tapped into for like R&D, or consulted for insights into their audience or the specific kind of market or area that they work in. We're also looking at the evolution of who gets to be an influencer. Like
Mhm.
it's experts now. It's dentists, scientists, teachers, all kinds of people are influencers. Whereas I think, you think back like 5 years ago, the idea of an influencer was very typically like, maybe somebody who was taking selfies. And it was very kind of that Instagram, the 2017, 2018 Instagram aesthetic, perfect photo, retouched and all those things. But I think we've really moved past that. So yes, that era is over. But the idea of people who have influence, right, and an online audience has not finished, and is not over. And so, yeah, that is going to continue. That part of it will continue.
I actually really appreciate that explanation, and I love that it's an evolution. It's not ending, like things rarely do, right? They evolve more so.
Right.
So sometimes I feel like higher ed is last to the party, for a lack of a better way to say it. Universities, I say that they're very large ships and they take a long time to turn. So, why and how do you think higher ed could benefit from influencer marketing?
There's two areas that I think of specifically with higher ed. Is one is that you're trying to appeal to students, especially like that is usually if not your audience, a large part of your audience is students, so Gen Z, and possibly Gen Alpha, depending on kind of, I guess, coming up soon or coming up
Yeah,
next.
they are on the radar for sure. Yeah.
Right. So you're thinking about, okay, who do those people listen to? Who do they trust? That tends to be influencers. And then I think that the other part of this is, like I was saying, we're seeing an evolution of influencer marketing. And so the idea that it's somebody that takes selfies, or it's like thirst trap pics or whatever, is like, that's kind of a dated idea of influencer marketing. I think now influencer marketing is just anybody who has an area of expertise and an online audience that they're able to influence. So that might be fellow students, that might be alumni, that might be professors, might be somebody in administration, for example. And so thinking about like, who are our amplifiers, who can amplify the message that we're sharing, and also who can translate it into something that people want to listen to or watch. I think that's one of the things that influencers do so well, is they're able to take information and convey it in a way that's really, I don't want to say entertaining, because it's not, there's some messages that have substance. It's not just light and fluffy, but the way that they convey messages, they've really tapped into how people want to receive information. And
Relatable. It's a
yeah,
relatable.
it's
Yeah.
very relatable. And that is the thing. Like, all the data shows that people like to listen to messaging or consume messages from people that look like them. Like, people,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to be, they don't have to look identical, but there's some sort of component that like they relate to, whether it's gender, ethnicity, age, background, whatever it is. People are looking for information from people like them, and not necessarily from brand or institution messaging, which right now is, really, I would say, kind of suffering in the trust department.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree. And as a
Yeah.
consumer, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that mindset or that shift has been hard to for some people to shift from. That influencer is not necessarily Kim Kardashian. An influencer can be an alumni or another student. I think it's been hard for that sort of light bulb to click on,
Yes.
So if you could give advice to our social media managers or
Yeah.
in higher ed on how to find some of those influencers, what would you suggest they do?
One of the things that you can do is look at, so let's say your intended audience is your students.
Mhm.
It depends, like whether it's the parents, the students, alumni, if you're looking for donations or whatever it is. Look at your intended audience and look at who they listen to. Look at whose content they share. Look at who they're liking, who they're watching. Whether you can do that online through, for example, like social listening tools, or whether it's literally a matter of talking to people in person. Like, who do you follow online? Who are influencers that you enjoy? And kind of tapping into like, who is it that they're listening to? Because that's probably going to give you a really good sense of who is relevant to your audience. Social listening tools, obviously, if you've got access to them, so that you're able to look at, okay, who is reaching these people. And I love that you brought up Kim Kardashian, because I do think, it's just, change is hard. People get used to something and they think of the Kardashians or the D'Amelio sisters or whoever it is, and they're like, that's an influencer. Okay, got it. Like, you've wrapped your mind around that. And it's like, yeah, they were for a while, but it's kind of evolved since then. So I think that's the thing, is being open to this evolution and being open to the idea that the influencer isn't just going to come from like a celebrity or a social media star, but could come from the office next to yours, and kind of being receptive to that. A couple of other things too that I wanted to mention is thinking about going to creator conferences,
Mm.
VidCon, VidSummit, for example, seeing who's speaking, seeing who you can meet and network with there. Whether that's people in the industry, whether that's creators, whether that's thought leaders. I think that's a really good opportunity to see, okay, who's making waves, who's making news, what are people talking about, and that it's a really great way to kind of get up to speed very quickly on what are the issues that are important in influencer marketing and the creator economy.
I know you mentioned listening tools, listening and monitoring tools, but I often find that just within platform, by looking to see who our students are engaging with, who they're commenting on, what accounts that are commenting to, and I literally just reach out to them within, like, I slide into their DMs and
Yeah.
within platform, and ask them, like, I really love this piece of content, or love what you created. Can you do that for us too?
Yeah, you can do it manually. That's the great thing, is that you don't have to be, using a very expensive third-party tool. Like, I love exactly what you're saying. There's a lot of it that you can do manually just by being online, by looking at what people are talking about, what they're sharing, who they're liking. Absolutely.
And so, if you do find people and you do approach them, can you talk about some of the collaborations and partnerships that are happening within influencer economy
Yes. I
marketing?
think
Sorry.
the to me, the biggest challenge probably in higher ed social is going to be, do you have a budget to, pay these influencers? Because they are small businesses unto themselves, and they have built an audience, and it is a business for them. So do you have a budget? And then if you don't have a budget, what are things that you can align on or provide value to that influencer to convince them to work, for you or with you or whatever? So it definitely is. It's a challenge. I'm not going to say like, oh, it's easy, you could just reach out to anybody and they're going to do something with you. But thinking about, is there an honor or an award that we can give this influencer? Could we invite them to come in and speak to a class? A lot of times, and it all depends on the influencer, but some influencers, I've asked them to come in to speak to my classes. I see people going in to speak at different, at Berkeley, at USC. There is a tremendous kind of, I feel like, an honor or prestige to being invited to speak to and lecture, a university class. And so a lot of influencers, I would say, 99% of influencers that I've asked to come in and speak to my class have said yes. One person asked for payment. I didn't have the budget to do that. And they said no. And that's fine. Like, I completely respect that they didn't want to do it for free, but a lot of people are really interested. Another thing is, if it's around a topic they feel passionate about. So if there's a charity or some sort of social cause that they support, and you can find an alignment, maybe the university has a department that's related to the issue that they support. Maybe you guys are doing some sort of, having a function, or there's a study being released around something that the influencer feels passionate about. Those are the kinds of things where you're going to be able to do a collaboration that does not require payment. If you're asking somebody to come in and just do like a sponsored post, it's kind of like a vanity post, like, this school's the best, register for this school or whatever, like, yeah, they're going to expect to be paid for that, because that's really just pure promotion. But if you can find kind of those overlapping areas, on which you both have topic in common, I think that's a great way to get started.
Thank you for talking about low budgets, because that's totally true. A lot of us in higher ed do not have budgets, but just so we can give our audience some context, like, if there's like, I feel like Away does this a lot. They set up these photo shoots with someone that's relevant in popular culture, and they set up a very natural and authentic shoot of them, like having with an Away luggage bag, right, or something like so. Can you do, is that something like a one-off thing you can work on with in an influencer or someone in your community, or, and the range must be different for cost, right? Getting someone on the bear has got to be like six figures, but there are those that probably will do it for like three figures, right?
Right. Like, yeah, speaking of the Kardashians, like, that's where you're looking at hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. If you're looking at, maybe it's an alumni or something, and you're able to do it for, a couple of $100, anywhere from like 250 to 500, depending on what you're asking the person to do. I think there's also different ways of looking at it. If they're posting on their feed, that usually will require kind of one figure, $1 amount, but maybe you're not asking them to post on their feed. Maybe you're asking them to create some content that you can post on the university feed, just because, whether it's their aesthetic that you like, or you just see a value in being aligned with this person. Maybe they're an influencer alumni or alumni influencer. So, it could also just be asking them to do something with you that you can then post on the university channels, which can be, again, that might be a little bit more affordable than asking them to post something to their audience. A lot of influencers, depending on the size of your audience, depending on the industry that you're in, influencers are also getting like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 for these campaigns. So I think you just have to have realistic expectations, not look for those Kardashians, but look for people that make sense to you. And then get creative with the different ways that you can work with them, from the no budget to the small budget. And I do think that there's a lot of different things that you can do kind of in that space.
And I'd like to encourage higher ed institutions or schools to really know that you do have influencers. You may think that you don't, but you really really do. Like I like the recent example of Stephen Nedorosik, the pommel horse guy, the Olympian. I think he's on the team at Penn State University, or he's a current student. He's been doing so much with their social accounts and collaboration. I think they're collabs, or maybe they're just casual collabs, but he has just really elevated, and amplified their accounts. So
there are teachers too that have become, science teachers that have become influencers as well. So I think it's like, look at the faculty and look at what is their audience size, who are they reaching, and I think don't just look at follower count. I mean, follower count is nice when you want to think about reaching a lot of people, but I also think it's like, what is the quality of their followers? So somebody that reaches a lot of influential people, or the people that you're trying to reach specifically. I think it's like, it's not just about numbers. It's really about who's following them, who's listening to them. And I think that's something valuable to think about as well. But it all goes back to what we were saying. It's the evolution of influencer marketing and thinking beyond who is the, social celebrity that we can get versus like who's the alumni, current student, faculty, administration person that has influence online and that we can tap into.
Absolutely. Do you any sort of thoughts or things that we didn't cover that you want our listeners to know or point out about?
I think, I mean, look, I like more resources. I said go to conferences. There are a lot of newsletters now. I write a newsletter. There's a couple of other people, Rachel Carton, Lindsay Gamble. There's a lot of people writing newsletters in this space. That's a really good way to keep up to date because things change so quickly, to monitor things. There's some great books, one called An Influencer's World. There's another one by Robert Kozenek called Influencers and Creators that I'm actually going to be using next semester. Is a great book. Things do change quickly. So I think, with books, you just have to kind of make sure that all of the information is still relevant. But as long as it's been revised or it's a relatively new, book or textbook, I do think that there's a lot of interesting information out there. And that can kind of help you unpack the space a little bit if you've been more traditionally in social and now you're digging into influencer marketing. And then the last thing I would say is just influencer marketing to me is very much blended with social. Like, social is communicating and communicating information and connecting with people and having conversations online. And people's preference now, especially Gen Z's preference, is to have that connection and communication with a real person. And that's sort of that role that influencers fill. It doesn't have to replace the social media manager. There still needs to be somebody at the helm, looking after the best interests of the institution. But the influencer can really help you in making deeper connections with people in your community.
Completely. And I'm so glad that you mentioned your newsletter. It's in case you missed it, right?
Yeah, ICYMI. Yeah.
And I think right now it's one of my favorites. It's, if not my favorite newsletter. So I really, really recommend, if you're not following it right now, subscribe to it immediately. It's so good.
I appreciate that. It's a mutual fan club. Since I use your book in my social media marketing classes. Yes.
Music to my ears. Thank you, Lia. But I can't let you go without asking you, Lia, what is your confession?
So my confession would be, at the end of the day, my favorite thing in social is really community management. If I could just give all this up, sit in front of my laptop, have an old school tweet deck or some sort of tool like that just to monitor online conversations, respond to people. I think if I could be a community manager, that would probably be kind of the dream role. So yeah, I don't know. There's such tremendous value in understanding, what messages are worth picking up on, worth responding to, how to respond to not mess things up. And it's just, I don't know. I love talking. So I think it's just like, my favorite memories are of sitting there and just like responding to people and having conversations online. And like, I think that's been my favorite job ever as a social media manager.
I'm with you. Lia, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And of course, as I always do when I talk to you, I've learned so much. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Allison Tercio, Mallory Wilsey, and so many others of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.